Hello viewers! Now that the summer is over and colder days are here, have you maybe noticed the heating in your car isn't really working as it should? Now, this isn't just unpleasant, as you'll be freezing especially in the winter, but it can also be quite unsafe because the windshield and the windows are likely to fog up, which can really obstruct your visibility. And because that's something none of you want, let's see what commonly causes issues with the car heating. The heating system in a car, as I shall explain a bit later, has several main components, and if any of them breaks, your car's interior will probably be stone cold no matter what you do. But let's see how you can try to narrow down the problem. For a start, what you need to do is figure out whether there is any air blowing through the vents. To do so, set the AC fan to the max. That would be this knob here, or in some cars, these buttons with the fan symbol on them, and put your hand over the vent opening. If you don't feel a strong airstream coming through, there is a good chance that either a blower motor or the resistor that controls its operations is short. Also, make sure to check all the vents, including those under the windscreen and within the footwell, just in case the AC is set to blow air only in that direction. On the other hand, if you can feel air coming through the vents, but it's cold or only lukewarm, despite the engine being fully warmed up, the problem is elsewhere. First on the list of suspects here would be the cabin core heater, which is hidden somewhere behind the dashboard. What happens here is that it'll get all clogged up with dirt and lime, preventing it from successfully warming up the air that goes through it. Next, we have the flaps inside the air ducts, whose job is to mix the hot air coming from the cabin heater and cold outside air to achieve a certain temperature inside the cabin. In most cars, the flap's movement is controlled by a small electric motor, and if it or a connecting mechanism breaks, the flap will remain stuck in one position. Also, there is a similar assembly that directs the air towards selected air vents, be it those on the dashboard, under it, or beneath the windshield. Again, a failure of its motor or the connecting mechanism will cause air to come only to some vents, not all of them. Next, obviously the heating, how much and how hot, is controlled by a series of buttons and knobs on the dashboard. These are linked to appropriate mechanisms, which I'll explain later, either mechanically or electronically. But if these buttons or the electronics behind it break, you won't be able to control the car's heating. Also, if you have a car with automatic climate control, like here, these things have sensors to measure the intake temperature, and of course, that's one more thing that can go bad. In fact, in such cars, it's a good idea to connect a diagnostic scanner and check if there are any AC-related codes. But bear in mind that most cheap code readers won't do the trick here, as you can mostly see only engine and transmission-related codes with them. Moving front, under the hood, most cars have a valve that controls how much coolant is going toward that heater core inside the cabin. In most cases, this is an electromagnetic device that may fail or its wiring might get damaged somehow, and if that happens, you probably won't have any heating. While here, I must mention a couple of issues with the engine that might affect the heating inside the car. One is the thermostat. If it's stuck in an open position, it'll take much more time until the engine heats up to the operating temperature, so it will be longer until the heating kicks in. Also, if the coolant level is low, there is a chance not enough of it will pass through the cabin heater core, again resulting in poor heating. A similar might happen if there is air trapped inside the cooling system. This is usually when the coolant was drained and wasn't bled correctly afterward. Lastly, what mustn't be overlooked here is the cabin air filter, which stops the dust and pollen from entering the car's interior. But like any other filter, this one will get clogged up with time, meaning less air will be able to pass through it, which consequently results in poor heating. Having gone through all likely failure points, let me show you how all these components work together to bring heat to your car's interior. The vehicle's interior heating system uses engine coolant, which flows through the cabin heater hidden behind the dashboard. In many cases, there is an electromagnetic valve somewhere inside the engine bay which shuts off this flow when you turn off the heating and lets the coolant through when you switch it on. The outside air, which is pushed through the AC system by a blower motor, whose operation is regulated by the resistor, heats up while going through the hot heater core. Now you want to be able to regulate how hot the air coming out of the vents is, and this is done by a flap inside the AC system. It mixes the warm air going through the heater core and cold air coming from the outside. Lastly, we have the knobs and buttons on the dashboard used to control the car's interior heating. In some older vehicles, these were mechanically linked to the valves and flaps with the cables. But in newer cars, everything's done electronically, meaning a computer engages and disengages all corresponding mechanisms. Now that we've seen how the car heating works, all that's left to answer is how much it could cost to repair it if it doesn't. For a start, the cabin filter. These things should be replaced on a regular basis, once a year, or what I suggest, every time you do an oil change. They are cheap, with prices ranging from $10 to $20, so there's no point holding back here, especially when you consider the air you're breathing is coming through it. Next, the heating valve. They usually cost between $40 and $100, and replacing them is a relatively simple job, although the cooling system needs to be bled properly afterward. And while we're under the hood, let's not forget the thermostat. If it's broken, you'll need to replace it, which usually costs around $100 with labor included. In case the coolant needs topping off, keep an eye on its level in the upcoming months. If it drops, you need to find where it's disappearing. Back inside the car, we have the blower motor, usually costing between $100 and $200, and the resistor, whose price is approximately half of the motor's. Replacing these two is not an overly complex job, which in most cases won't take more than an hour. But then we come to the really nasty part, the cabin heater. While with prices ranging from $100 to $200, they aren't that expensive, gaining access to them might be a nightmare. In most cars, the whole dashboard needs to be taken apart, which is a tedious and time-consuming job, which could cost up to $500. And if you're having this done by a mechanic, make sure to find someone who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, they might break various clips and mechanisms holding the dashboard firmly in place, and it will rattle and squeal afterwards. And that's something nobody wants. Lastly, the AC dash with knobs and buttons. If it's an electronic version, which in most cars nowadays is, it could be quite pricey to get a new one. Depending on the model, you can end up paying several $100s for this component alone. So that would be all about the interior heating in a car, how it works, why it may stop working, and most importantly, how much will it cost to repair it. I hope this video was helpful, and if so, don't forget to hit that like button and share it with your friends. Also, if you're having other car issues, perhaps its engine is not running right, or it makes unusual noises while driving, be sure to check other videos here or visit our site mechanicbase.com for detailed automotive repair guides. Bye!